Hey, good afternoon. This is Bob from Trade Genius, and still the weekend of the November 12th, 13th. And I want to talk to you about something that I think has been enshrined, and I think we're no going back. I posted a video right after the election called "Seismic Shifts," but the one thing I didn't talk about was I think the biggest shift of all, and with President Trump being elected president, I think has set the seeds for the next Great Depression. And and before you think, oh, why did you always support Trump and blah blah and Hillary? If we'd had Hillary, we would have a Great Depression as well, but a far different result, which would be far worse for America. So let me explain what I think is going to happen. And and bear in mind, I'm not talking about what's going to happen next week or next month. I'm talking about some really big dominoes that are in motion right now that we just saw a taste of after the election. And those dominoes are really around what's happening with the currency. And if you noticed, as soon as the election happened, President Trump, President-elect Trump, I should say, gave a speech in which he kind of codified some of the things that he's been ranting on in the and during the election run up, and that is that he was going to be more protectionist on trade. He's going to be more aggressive on people who use their currencies to manipulate trade, and he's going to spend a lot of money within the United States. He's going to reverse the immigration tides, and he's also going to work on energy independence. And all those things, depending on where you sit on the political divide, are can be considered noble causes in terms of, hey, we want to secure the border, we want to have energy independence, we want to have fair trade, blah blah blah. But it has a big consequence. And I just to give you a little bit of background, America, after I guess Bretton Woods, and then after Nixon went ahead and got us off the gold standard, is that we've been using dollars and we've been debasing our currency essentially to control the world and have world domination through another means. In the past, if you wanted to control nations, you actually went to war with them. And now we have this notion of using currency to do that. And we became the reserve currency, and we went ahead and used that currency to really control other nations. And then we got in bed with the Saudis and created a petrodollar kind of economic system. But it has consequences for the Americans, because what it did was it really enabled the Asian countries to, and partly also Germany, to become what they call mercantilist nations, in which they basically, their populations are used as resources to export and develop wealth within those nations at our expense. And how they kept that from becoming a total meltdown for America is that we got in bed with them. We did what's the social spending, and we did the defense spending, which kept the economy going at the expense of a lot of debt. And now we rang this debt up to $19 trillion. The Federal Reserve has drove interest rates to zero. So we're at a point now, either with Hillary or with Trump, is that party was over. And so now you had a Democratic or the liberal progressive view of continue to import poor people into a nation of people who are already getting poor, and a nation who's no longer producing anything. And that was a recipe that would have been a disaster. We basically, the whole world would have melted down. But now we have a different kind of problem coming, and what's going to be is very similar to what happened in the 1920s, when trade collapsed. And ironically, we went from this period of time, the 20s, where people were giddy about the war, to now people are kind of giddy about globalism. Is that we have Trump saying, hey, no mas. And so the dollar popped, and dollar's been getting stronger all year actually, and our bonds fell, and the Chinese currency is collapsing, the Asian currencies are collapsing, Japanese currency is getting stronger, but that's not good for Japan, and trade has been drying up, and I think trade's going to collapse, and what that's going to do is it's going to cause the worldwide, we're going to have a definitely a decline in GDP, and it's going to go for more than 2 periods. So it's going to go past a recession, it's going into a depression, and it's going to cause some massive deflationary waves around the world, and you see it with oil. Oil's been telling the tale, and in fact, I just read today that in Europe all the storage tanks are full. Singapore, there's no more place to dock a boat or ship with oil in it. We're almost full here. We in fact, in OPEC overproduced again. So you're going to see oil prices collapse, and around the world, a lot of people have dollar debt, and the dollar's starting to rise because we don't need as many dollars if we're not trading as much, and we're producing more oil and natural gas here at home, and it's going to have a contagion effect. And before you get all worried that this Great Depression is going to be bad for America, actually, it's going to be relatively good for us, and we have historical context for that. When we had the first Great Depression, you could substitute us today as Great Britain back then, China today as America back then. America was China in the 20s. We were massively exporting. We were mercantilistic. We had high tariffs, and we were exporting into Europe. And then during World War I, they got ravaged, and we had the Great Depression. Germany had their bout with hyperinflation. The Great Depression hit. America lost their export markets, and America collapsed. 25% unemployment, prices of homes went down, economic GDP collapsed, and it basically took a world war to get back out of it. But Great Britain was just the opposite. They were a big debtor nation. They were big importers, and what happened is that when all the trade collapsed, well, they started producing internally again, and in fact, London property prices went up during the Great Depression. And so what happens with America is the same thing's going to happen. Our dollar's going to be stronger, so the things that we need to import are going to get cheaper. And this nation is unique among almost all. I think there's 5 other nations that are similar to us in terms of our ability. We can feed ourselves. We have enough energy resources to energize ourselves. Those two things alone can make us operate without any outside currency stress. And we have the manufacturing resources, and we have the human resources, and we have the intellectual capital to basically operate outside of anybody else. And in Canada and Mexico are benign neighbors, notwithstanding all the brouhaha around the immigration. We're on relatively friendly terms with Mexico, and I wouldn't worry too much about Mexico gangs. If push comes to shove and it gets too hot for Mexico or the U.S., they'll be resolved. And so we don't have to worry about a war causing us issues. And the other thing too is, as I've been railing pretty hard on climate change on a different level, and you see it with the what's happening right now in Eurasia. Basically the whole continent of Europe and Asia now are basically under snow, and it just started November. And that's typical what happens during a solar minimum. And it's going to cause some food problems too. Well, America, because of the way we're structured, is that we're not only wide, but we're not only long, but we're wide. And so we're going to be able to have the resources to feed ourselves where other nations won't. And so as you go out and you start looking at where there's going to be problems, and I'm talking, this is going to be like another, like between now and probably 2019, 2020, I think is when we're going to probably hit rock bottom. Is that China? I don't know if China survives it in its current form. Russia's going to have a lot of issues because they're a commodity-based nation. I think Europe is screwed. They can't feed themselves. They can't energize themselves. and they have Russia, which they unnecessarily antagonized, England, who bailed out on them, and then you got North Africans and the Muslims from the Middle East trying to get into their country, into their social safety nets, and disrupt their political. So I wouldn't be too excited about being a European. Sorry about that. I think you guys are gonna have a pretty tough road to hoe. And so, as this thing all shakes out, is a lot of money, a lot of capital, a lot of very scared people are going to come to America, and I think we're going to be relatively okay. But I'm not saying that, hey, the stock market's not going to have some issues. It will. So we're going to go through this euphoria here. I don't know how long this Trump euphoria is going to last, but I think over the next, probably till the next elections, which we vote for House and Senate, is it's going to take a year to sort out all the spending that President-elect Trump wants to do. And I think that's going to give everybody kind of a good guy feel. And then after that, the hangover will come. And I think then the next 3 years are going to be pretty tough. So, the way we've been playing it is that we're not excited about oil at all. I don't think it's going to come back next spring. Natural gas we are excited about because I think it's going to be very cold. It doesn't transfer across the nations very well yet. And so we're not really impacted by, Saudis overproducing because they're not bringing their natural gas here. So it's really a matter of how much is going to be produced here locally. And I don't think they're going to be able to produce enough for how cold it's going to be this spring. So we're going to get a lift there. And grain prices are going to go up quite a bit. And as I tell you, coffee prices will as well for reasons I've already illuminated. And so I would just be careful here. Don't get yourself over your skis. If they keep raising interest rates, we're going to have a double whammy. So, in order to keep that dollar strong, they're going to continue to raise those rates, and real estate is going to be a big problem. So that's the other thing that we started to short as well, and so we'll be in and out of that. And so if you subscribe to us, or even if you just follow along on some of the free stuff, you'll see that we're in and out. And we had a great trade already on real estate short. We kind of have a diagonal trade on right now where we're looking at short longer, and it's a little bit of a bump here coming out of this disruption with the election. And we've been in and out of shorting the oil services companies because you're not going to need as many rigs around the world once all these storage tanks fill up until they get sold back down again. And the oil, I think, is going to absolutely collapse. So I think there's been people talking about oil in the 20s again. Wouldn't surprise me a bit, but we're definitely going under $40 because the way people have been making money in the oil market is that they've been speculating in it, but they don't take possession of it. They're speculators like I am. And so what they do is they buy the oil short term and then they sell in the outer months because the spread in the price is less than what they would have to pay. And I'm talking big money, not people like me. Would have to pay to store the oil to keep it off the market. Well, you get to a point where the oil price is now you lose the differential, and they need a $10 differential between now and a year from now to be able to store the oil off market, and that's no longer the case. And if oil pops up at all short term versus the out months, is that the speculators lose money and they just start dumping oil. And that's what you just saw here when oil just dropped from $50 to $44, $45. Well, it's going to go through it again because between now and February is weak time for oil anyway. And as the dollar gets stronger, it's going to put more pressure on oil prices, and you're going to see the speculators dumping oil. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see oil $35 or even $30. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I have a fly here on me. I feel like Hillary at the debate. And so I think people are going to have to really be careful. But we're going to have a worldwide depression. And unfortunately, for those who hate America, we're going to come out of this pretty well. And for those of you who are in America, you're going to have some hope. So anyways, Bob from Trade Genius. I'll do some more market reports later this weekend, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.